Well, whoops, Angela Rayner has landed herself well and truly in the brown stuff. Let's begin. Now, of course, I don't know about you, but it does seem, doesn't it, that ever since the election happened and Labour won, or sorry, the Conservatives lost more like, Angela Rayner has seemed, apart from saying something that she wants to cancel right to buy or whatever it was, she has been keeping her head down. But now, it appears she's just admitted something which is bound to damage not only her, but also Labour even more than what they are already. And let's face it, Labour don't exactly need much help with that, do they? But what am I going on about then? Well, according to this article, it says that Angela Rayner admits her hard left workers' rights bill will hammer small businesses. That's right. The small self-employed people who are trying to perhaps start a business themselves or continue with that business only to hoping it will take off, and now she's made it much harder for them, or will do rather. If this article's anything to go by, and it says the government's own impact assessments has revealed that the new laws will push up prices and lead to job cuts, which, let's face it, is the last thing we need, isn't it? In the middle of this cost of living crisis we're all going through at the moment. And I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that when Rachel Reeves announced her Labour budget just before Halloween, we'll see much more worse things coming, I'm sure. But anyway, Labour's workers' rights overhaul could cost businesses, wait for this, £5 billion a year, ministers have admitted. And whilst admittedly that is more than likely the whole costs combined for all the businesses, small businesses are bound to find it much more difficult to cope, and who knows, may even collapse as a result. The changes, including flexible work and paternity and sick day leave from day one, could force up prices for consumers and lead to job cuts. But just why is that? Well, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that at the moment, in certain companies, you can't take something like sick leave from day one and have to, as far as I'm aware, wait till your probation period is over, which I'm pretty sure is around about 6 months for most companies, and therefore could mean that they might have to do a bit of restructuring within the company to fill any shifts that need covering, and therefore may even have to pay overtime, like potentially time and a half, or maybe even, if you're really lucky, double time just to cover a shift. And who's going to pay for that? Well, it's us customers, isn't it? Because let's face it, if you're a small business, any profits that you get aren't exactly going to be much compared to the big boys out there, are they? But anyway, the warning comes in this impact assessment from the Employment Rights Bill, which was debated and voted on by MPs last night. And it is the first time the government has produced any such estimated costs for the controversial measures. And let's face it, Labour do seem to have been very tight-lipped on how they're going to pay for things, don't they? Apart from quite often during the election campaign, I'm pretty sure they're saying, oh, it's fully costed, but they never said how, did they, as far as I remember. But anyway, the plans include measures to ban exploitive zero-hours contracts and unscrupulous fire and rehire practices, which admittedly, I don't really like the idea of fire and rehire at all. That, in my opinion, I don't know, is kind of like giving someone a kick in the gonads and then hand them an ice pack to put on it. But in an impact assessment, as says, published by the government, has warned that the policies will impose a direct cost on businesses of apparently low £1 billion per year, i.e. less than £5 billion annually. But don't worry, because apparently the total wage costs in the UK were £1.3 trillion in 2023 in nominal terms. It also cites official surveys suggesting that 40% of businesses would respond to higher labour costs by increasing prices, while 17% would cut jobs. So either way, that's not going to be good for people, is it? Because let's face it, if we can't work or lose our job, we're not going to be able to pay for all the stuff we need, which at the moment does only seem to be going one way, which, let's face it, is not exactly a good way at the moment, is it, eh? Around a third, though, would rely on profit margins to absorb the costs, the assessment said, which I'm probably guessing is the bigger boys out there. It also warns that the costs would be proportionally higher for small and micro businesses as a result of admin costs and compliance burdens, but says measures need to apply in the same way to avoid creating a two-tier workforce. Well, who knows, with two-tier Keir as unfortunately our Prime Minister, I'm guessing that will more than likely be happening, because he is two-tier Keir after all in my eyes anyway. But anyway, it says where some workers get the access rights and some do not. Obviously, if they make the changes, everyone should be treated the same, and there should not be any two-tier anything at all, should there? Now, not only would this be unfair for those workers, it says, that would lose out, but it would provide a disincentive for those small businesses to grow, it adds. The legislation could also make employers less willing to hire workers, something which could offset productivity gains achieved through more efficient employer and employee matching, the assessment warns. Labour really do need to get their head around this. It does often seem that they come up with an idea going, oh yes, that's a good idea, I'll steamroll it through, without actually thinking of the consequences. Perhaps, who knows, this could lead to another U-turn, which the belly dancing U-turn master himself, Keir Starmer, has seemed to love previously. Of course, apart from anything winter fuel allowance related, it seems, at the minute anyway, but hopefully he could either U-turn on that in the coming months, or could be waiting to see how much flack he actually gets for it this year and bring it back next year. Perhaps potentially saying something like, oh, do you know what, I've done my best and I've managed to bring it back for you all. Aren't I amazing? When in fact he is nothing but a penis, in my opinion. And of course, here we go, look, listen to this. The legislation will also hand more power to trade unions, making it far easier for them to stage walkouts by scrapping years of anti-strike legislation introduced by the Tories, which, let's face it, is going to be an absolute nightmare. Because remember, Labour borrowed, what was it, £9 billion or something like that to pay off the junior doctors, didn't they? And at the moment, we're hearing that train drivers might be striking quite soon, and if more and more companies can do it, it's just going to be a nightmare for us all, isn't it? And who knows how much this black hole could be inflated by it, because Labour have to dip into it to cave into those unions. But anyway, that is the analysis by many of the policies within the Employment's Right Bill could help support economic growth, including it could have a positive but small direct impact on growth. But just what has the government said about this? Well, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner said the legislation will deliver the biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation and the growth our economy needs. She said, we're delivering real change for working people across the country. Well, I'm sorry, but not if they lose their jobs, Angela. But anyway, while driving our mission for growth and making people better off, successful firms already know that strong employee rights mean strong growth opportunities. And this landmark legislation will extend the employment protections given by the best British companies to millions more workers. Well, at the end of the day, growth is good. However, if prices go up, it's probably not going to be good for our wallets, is it? And either way, Labour, in my opinion, really do need to think about these things rather than trying to run before they can walk.